Everyone. Welcome to the Serverless Computing webinar series. Today we have a great guest. His name is Parikshit Chitalkar. He is the co-founder of Stashfin, and I'm very happy to have him sharing the stage with me today. How are you, Parikshit?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the kind words, Anshu. Looking forward to having an engaging conversation with you on this webinar.
All right, wonderful. Parikshit, could you tell me more about yourself and what you do at Stashfin, and what is Stashfin about?
Sure. A brief background about myself. I'm an army kid. Grew up all over the country in India. My dad was a doctor in the army. Post that, my professional background, I've worked in the tech space in the financial services industry in Canada for the most part. Worked for brands like Royal Bank of Canada, National Bank Financial, Manulife, where most of my roles were around technology development on engineering teams in derivatives trading and risk modeling systems. Post that, in 2007, had the opportunity to start my own company. We built a enterprise mobility platform very similar to a Tableau or a Power BI, but the iPad had just come out back then in 2007. So that worked out well. I was able to exit that to a private equity fund in 2014. Moved back to India, and then since 2016, been one of the co-founders at Stashfin. What we do here is we offer consumers, salaried individuals, credit in the form factor of a card. So it's a line of credit product where they're exposed to a certain virtual line, and they're able to draw down any part of that line in multiple iterations, and basically decide how they'll pay that down. So it's a very flexible, transparent credit product that we offer to consumers in India.
Okay, that's great because there's so much innovation and disruption that's happening in fintech, and this is very country specific, I would say, and in much needed place where the credit is not easily available. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely right. There's two aspects to our business. We've built a technology platform that's fairly generic that possibly have applications in other geographies as well.
Okay.
However, the application of that credit platform currently, we're focused on the salaried segment within India.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And I was reading about the Stashfin. Stashfin has raised a phenomenal round of funding. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
It's a great achievement. All right. So you've been working in the technology field for so long, and I wanted to hear from you. What innovation have you seen especially in the fintech world, in terms of technology?
Technology. I always tell all the junior engineers that join my team that you're young today, but technology has a way of aging you really really fast.
Okay.
So I actually have personally worked in from FTP deployments to SFTP to SVN, which most of these kids know nothing about. To the advent of Git, and then doing Git automations where hooks will deploy processes, and then now these modern CI/CD pipelines. So yeah, I mean, kind of seen that entire transformation, and I'm actually very excited to have been a part of it. And just to draw a parallel to the non-tech folks that may stumble upon this podcast, it's like we're the generation who's kind of seen rotary phones all the way to your Google Glass type stuff where you're just saying stuff and it's happening. So it's that, but what we've seen in the tech space.
Yeah, I actually have seen a lot of memes lately. If you have seen rotary phones, if you have seen a tape, like a tape where you actually, when the tape was loose and you were using a pencil, then you are in big trouble. I've seen so many memes lately, and I'm definitely in the same group. Okay.
But makes that, so it's 10 times that. It just happens every 6 months is something new, and so it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Can you talk about your infrastructure, about your Stashfin infrastructure, how it's evolved over time, or how you set it up? What cloud architecture decisions have you made? Because you said first and foremost it's a technology platform that offers a financial benefit to the consumer, salary consumer. So could you tell me more about your infrastructure?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Anshu. Just the philosophy behind us building out our tech platform was very clear from the beginning. We knew that we had a business to run, and the tech was supposed to support the business. So never did we actually want to put the horse before the cart. So we wanted to make sure that that the business case, whether that means at that point in time, it's speed to market, cost efficiency, rapid deployment, what have you. We always wanted to make sure that whatever tech tools or deployments or architecture choices we make, that's the front and center sort of guiding principle that we use. So that served us well. We also made a choice very early on to build everything in house versus work with third party vendors and integrate systems. So both those things, I think, in hindsight, that those have actually paid rich dividends over our journey. That said, in terms of the core tech infrastructure, we started with a monolith platform. Sort of single application that had a front end website and the back end all connected to a single database.
Mm-hmm.
Were built on cloud from day one, so we never had any on-prem stuff whatsoever. Everything was, when we focused on the AWS cloud, we have a very deep partnership with them now
Okay.
because of that division. So we built everything on the AWS cloud from day one. So it was largely one monolith application running on EC2 instances with a load balancer in the front, and then one sort of one large database based on the back. We are also very big proponents of trying to. You have to build a very strong use case in our company not to use something managed. So we're very big on managed services. EC2. I mean, that was a kind of a black box where we were kind of writing our own code for deployments, and then other than that, everything was managed, right from the load balancers to using RDS for databases, backups, everything that we put together. So it was a very simple infrastructure to begin with. Now, in the last 12 to 18 months, or 18 to 12 months, we've basically started to migrate towards a bit of a microservices architecture.
Okay.
I don't think we'll ever go like full on microservices where every little thing is a service of its own.
Okay.
But now functional separation of services that's coming along. In terms of technologies that we use, it's we use PHP, we use a fair bit of Python for all of our data pipelines. We use some Java because we interact a lot with banking, so where you have to kind of deploy jars and so on. And then we use a little bit of Node, and a lot of our front ends are either React or Next.js or things like that.
All right. So yeah, up like all quite a big tech stack. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
And there are quite a few choices also these days. So you did mention function architecture, and that I'm assuming that's a serverless computing paradigm that you're using. So how what sort of applications? So I'm assuming because these are microservices, there are certain aspects of it that you have put it in serverless computing paradigm. Could you talk more about what sort of microservices have you implemented using serverless APIs?
sure. So again, philosophically, when we started down this approach of considering doing considering so serverless, again, like I said in the beginning, we always look at technology as a function of what the business needs,
Hmm.
versus the other way around, right? The decision to go serverless or not, or when, was basically guided by the same thing. We had applications that were scaling up and down. So, for example, if we would get, instead of getting 5,000 leads a day, if we suddenly got 100,000 leads a day, there was a customer CRM that had to scale.
Hmm.
Being in a monolith environment, that meant that we were dialing up EC2 instances to run everything,
Yeah,
um,
very expensive.
which is very expensive, inefficient. Host of challenges with it, and it's hard to forecast that demand,
Hmm.
and forecast when it ends.
Yeah.
Right. So those kind of things. So when that happened, we realized, okay, serverless is something that we need to consider. Now within that, again, same philosophy applies. Two choices. One is try to build a bit of a serverless infrastructure, using things like Kubernetes, or first see what can you kind of take out and actually put on a full FaaS model, something like a AWS Lambda. So that's where we actually started first. So things that were triggering very rapidly, and kind of needed a lot of scale going up and down automatically. We actually went to Lambda first. So things like calculating a customer's amortization schedule, which is a XIRR function that is built in Python. That till date runs in Lambda, and that gets triggered multiple times. Sometimes you'll get 1,000 hits in a minute, and that's independent. But then, so the next stage was, okay, now that's working. Now we're having challenges in some of our main, application workload that the backend guys are using or the customers using. That's when we said, okay, now we actually need to deploy these applications themselves on a serverless platform, which is where we went the Docker Kubernetes route, deployed on Amazon using EKS and a CI/CD pipeline that we've kind of custom built in house.
Okay. All right. Well, that's wonderful because you're using the cloud what it was meant for.
Yeah.
How have you found your developers adapting to this serverless cloud? I mean, it is a little different way of architecture because you are not only breaking the monolith, but you are coding in form of small functions, and they can scale independently. They can scale to zero. They can scale infinite. But it is a computing paradigm that the developers have to adopt. Uh, they've known it their life, but it's like not writing in the traditional way. So how have you found that? Has it been easy journey? Has it been difficult? Required a bit of pushing, or it was just welcomed?
Um, I'd be lying if I said it was an easy journey, but we sure made it fun. So I'm like a big student of human psychology. So it's this
Okay.
concept. There's this concept of hedonistic adaptation. If you actually make something, give someone something that's better than what they have, they adapt faster versus going the other way, right? So what we actually did was, in all seriousness, we actually built out one. So we had an application that pretty much everyone had written on. So I took a couple of DevOps guys and told them that, listen, let's migrate this to Kubernetes first. Do it ourselves. Don't even tell them you're doing it. And then you basically say that, listen, instead of pushing to this endpoint, you push this endpoint, and you basically say, Docker compose up and see what happens. So we got it to a point where it was fully stable. It was like a small secret team of 3 guys that did it, and then we kind of showed the rest of our engineers, and they're like, oh, this is cool. So we had some early buy-in just by way of fascination, right? So that helped, and it was an application that everyone knew well. So we actually took that a part of that monolith and moved that to a serverless platform. That
Okay.
actually helped them. So it was not a immediate paradigm shift that, listen, you got to start breaking everything into functions and this is how you deploy. We actually took something that they were familiar with and just moved that to Kubernetes using Docker. So that helped a lot. And then we said, okay, now that they're familiar with how Docker works and how to deploy and how the CI/CD pipeline works, then if you tell them to kind of code differently, it's easier versus to say that, okay, I'm going to take this and break this up into 15 functions and that's on you. So we kind of avoided that challenge this way, and it's worked well so far.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. So it's leading by example. So you did something and they liked the experience of it, I believe,
Yeah,
seeing how
I
it is and how it works.
I'm an army kid. That's the only way I know how. So
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So when you made that change, or when you saw that change happening in the developers, did you see any benefit to the developer productivity, for instance?
huge, and you can actually see it because, in fact, if you talk to our business teams, we always, our company's kind of divided into two parts of the life cycle. We had a small office in a neighborhood in Delhi called Kotla. So we still call that the Kotla days, which was, we were about 200 people in 2,000 square feet or 3,000 square feet, and we're the same 2,000 people in now 8,000 square feet.
Yeah.
200 people in 8,000 square feet. So back then it was, because that's a time that, and no coincidence, but that was a time that we were in this monolith platform where someone pushed something and then everything else broke because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
regression in a monolith is near impossible, and it's near impossible to explain that to the business team. So, listen, sales guy asked for that.
Mhm.
Not my fault he didn't check with the credit guy, but
Mhm.
and it's not the developer's fault, but the developer's getting beaten up.
Uh-huh.
So that's completely gone away, right? So therefore, it actually helps efficiency go up many folds because these guys are now not spending time fixing regression issues, which are just a natural outcome of dealing with a large code base all deployed on a single server. that's just, it's life. That's just, it's always going to happen. Business teams don't understand this, and it's hard to explain. But so yeah, just on that one aspect itself, we've seen efficiency go up multiple times. That people are not having to maintain or regress a large application. They're basically just focusing on their little stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. What I have found, in just a background of Nimbella, we are a serverless platform, and we eat our own dog food. So everything we do is serverless. Okay, and what I have found is that developer productivity is super high because you can work on little things and deploy and see that you're not now your unit tests and system test cycles are very short because you're not testing you're not relying in the end for everything to work in the cloud because you're testing in the cloud all the time,
Yeah.
and that it leads to faster time to market. And so you are impacting the top line because you're
Mhm.
faster time to market, and you're impacting the bottom line because the developer productivity has increased, so your
Absolutely.
cost of development is much lower.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And
people like new skills. So once they start developing in this, they just love the beauty, the agility, and how fast they can develop, build, and run. It's just
I've seen that because our business was scaling as well. I mean, we've gone, many folds in the last 4 years, and the demand was there. I mean, we exactly like you said, we had to make sure that the system was available to scale top line. If we were getting 10x more leads yesterday than we were today,
okay.
it has to go up and down. And you can't. I mean, the developer physically can't do anything to manage. That's all how the server environments are going to react. It'll be the same code that just has to run at a different scale. So in that sense, serverless kind of helped us a lot. And you're absolutely right. And the other part is that when the same developer sees their code run in a stable fashion at scale, it's a very satisfying experience for them.
Absolutely.
And you
Yeah.
can actually physically see their confidence go up, right? They're just like different human beings. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's been fun to watch.
So at this point in time, you have nothing monolith running. You have completely re-architected the whole thing, or you still have like some of them, some of the
Um,
services.
So I'd say about 80%, and is now serverless. The 20% bit, which is now reminiscent of whatever was our main monolith, is pretty much all the backend processes. So that's where our team interacts with it. But largely everything customer facing is now down the microservices route. The data layer we've kind of still retained as a single, because we're in the financial services industry and we have to have a single source of truth type model.
Okay.
And there's a lot of compliance issues that we need to bear in mind. So therefore, at the data layer, we've kind of the final storage we've kind of kept as a single MySQL Aurora RDS instance.
Okay.
However, even there, we've kind of added some abstraction layers. We use a lot of Redis streams,
Okay.
for caching and things of that nature.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'd say about 80% of our journey is done, and then the remaining, over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll start to even break down some of those backend processes into an API plus front end type structure,
Okay.
which we'll then deploy. But even that's now running on Kubernetes. So
So
what,
everything is running in cloud native architecture then.
yeah, 100%.
So,
It was built like that. We just migrated it into the serverless stack.
yes. Okay. So, and can you share how many engineers you have just to understand the scale?
So our total team has grown a fair bit. We're now including tech and data science, both of which is what I oversee, machine learning and just the software development guys. Our total team is about 80 at this point in time,
Okay.
but that's literally doubled in the last 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
A large part of our build out has been done by a team of about 25 to 30 folks.
Okay. Okay. All right. And with this COVID, has some like the architecture helped because now you have like a kind of a division of responsibility, people in different places, and with such an architecture which is divided into microservices and functions, you can actually easily have different people working from anywhere. You could have it even before, but when they're closely tied, it's kind of hard when you're kind of trying to develop. Do you see any benefit of remote workforce using this architecture? Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, huge. So we kind of have a open work from home policy anyway, which we implemented when the last lockdown came around.
Mhm.
So the engineering teams can basically work from anywhere they choose. any which way, regardless of lockdown or not. And that's in a large part been enabled by these tools that we use, as you correctly said. Even on the business side, since we were kind of built on cloud from day one, and everything that we used was cloud native. When the first lockdown in India was announced, I think on March 29th, 20th to 29th, I remember it was a Friday that it was announced. We were, the entire company, all business teams, even telecallers. We work with a lot of outsourced telecalling vendors that support that function for us, and then we have a small in-house team. So down to that, on the Monday we were basically live with everyone. Like the professional call centers had difficulties migrating, but our teams were up and running, and I would attribute 100% of that to the fact that all our applications were actually cloud native to begin with. So all we had to do was basically over the weekend just tie up a DNS layer 7 type VPN connected to G Suite authentication, and we were able to kind of give everyone access from outside the office in a span of 48 hours. So yeah, that's it's across the board, not just tech, which obviously there are benefits, but even on the business sides, the benefits have been huge.
Okay. Well, fintech companies typically are worried about security threats and just in general, because you have data, which is we call in the US PII data, and there's probably a similar term there. But do you think your serverless cloud addresses that point in a better way, or doesn't impact that? What are your thoughts on that?
I actually think it's a false notion that just comes from human belief in physical objects being more secure than something that you can't see. That something on-prem is generally safer than. What are you going to do? If something happens, the only difference is you can pull the plug on the electricity and I can't. That's really it. But then you're actually rendering your infrastructure useless. So I don't necessarily believe that whatever you have on-prem, there's any ability difference in how well you can secure something that's on the cloud. If at all, it's better, because all the modern security tools and companies that are working on the security side are pretty much focused on cloud security. Gone are there is very limited amount of innovation that you can do other than some 2FA type tokens or something of that sort that you can do for on-prem. So all the work, all the innovation is happening on the cloud side any which way. And yeah, you're right. We're in the financial services industry. We store PII for millions of customers. There is a lot of regulatory onus that's on us to make sure that's protected. The Indian regulator is actually pretty strong from that standpoint in enforcing that. So we've been very focused on it, and right down and all these tools are actually 80% of your work is kind of done out of the box on cloud native platforms. AWS gives you a WAF, Cloudflare gives you a WAF. There's GeoIP production. All of this stuff you would have to manage yourself in an on-prem infrastructure, which kind of comes out of the box. It's like 2 clicks and 80% of your security deployment sorted, and then the rest of the 20% is custom, where you kind of watch the threats that are coming in and deal with it. So and also multiple layers of security. So we have our WAF, we have GeoIP based security there, because we know we're not going to get customers from Russia or Ukraine.
Right,
Where security issues come from, but we're just not going to get customers from outside India, so we can geo-block those. And then behind that is our API gateway, and then behind that is our Istio and Keycloak and all of those things. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can do on the cloud that's just pretty much not possible on-prem architectures.
Okay, that's great to hear. One thing I wanted to ask regarding your cloud architecture. So you mentioned you are in AWS. What are your thoughts on multi-cloud?
Yeah, so it is a priority for us. So kind of we are kind of working on scripting all of our deployments now. So my idea is that in all fairness, AWS has been great partners for us. Not just the fact that support is just one thing, but these guys have actually multiple times over helped us with POCs on actual stuff. So I've had 2-3 AWS engineers come to us, work with our teams, do a POC, and then help. And a lot of people think that AWS means AWS support. It's not that. If you reach out to them, these guys have very very well-rounded startup programs that they help with. That said, I mean, ultimately we are running a business. Mitigating risk is something that kind of we have to do. So from that standpoint, what we're working on now is kind of scripting all of our infrastructure build-outs so that we can become multi-cloud. So using things like Ansible. So those are all things that we're working on now. So maybe in the next 12 months, we'll try something out. Maybe just from a DRP standpoint to begin with, and then once that's sorted, we'll kind of looking at doing some production workloads on a multi-cloud model as well.
Okay. Oh, very very good. So in that case, you'll be considering other public clouds, or do you even think of going hybrid, like private cloud and public?
I think we'll probably step 2 in our journey would likely be multi-cloud on public clouds. Just hybrid is a little hard for us because we don't really have the infrastructure to support anything on-prem at this point at all. So that's a business consideration that we'll have to get into at some point if the case.
Okay. So regarding regarding this just the financial services industry, does going serverless help you get to the right data that you are accessing for, say, that just I'm going to take just a generic financial example. You're processing the loan, okay, and you need to look at certain characteristics, the income and like here we call it social security, and there would be Aadhaar card or something, and you need to look at the risk profile or whatever. Does adopting a technology help you get to the right data at the right time that can be effectively used to create the value for the customer, or it's not a matter of infrastructure at all, or how you're architected? Just your thoughts on that.
No, so functionally, what you're saying is absolutely right, and function ultimately is always a derivative of the infrastructure, right? So by that deductive logic, infrastructure absolutely matters. For instance, when a customer comes in, what are they looking for? They're looking for two questions. One is, am I going to get credit? And if yes, how much? The faster we can answer these questions with the minimal input from the user, the better customer experience that we're delivering. That's just the basic industry logic of what we do. So that said, my ability to things like look at their just look at their Aadhaar card, just a physical picture of their Aadhaar card, and do an OCR in the cloud and pre-fill their journey. Use their PAN card or Aadhaar card, look at what bureau information they have in parallel, so async, and then combine those two. And by the time he hits click on the next screen, I already have that offer ready. I say, listen, yes, this looks great. You're going to get 50,000 rupees in the next 90 seconds. That's a great customer experience. Now, to deliver that, I need to make sure that these two bits of information are coming to my infrastructure, very, very quickly. And they're also available for the downstream process. So using things like Redis streams has cut our processing latency down by many step functions. When I'm using Redis streams, I'm actually it's much more beneficial to actually do it on a serverless type platform where scale is not a consideration that I have to worry about. So by that deductive logic, absolutely, in architecture decisions in infrastructure, have a direct role in what you're able to deliver to the top line and bottom line both, and obviously the customer experience.
Okay, that's wonderful. From your journey in the fintech industry, and you've been in this industry for a very long time. So over the years, do you think these serverless solutions are going to dominate this sector because the benefited to the sector?
So I think the where we are in the financial services industry in general, fintech, the answer is absolutely yes, because these are all fairly new companies, and fairly new companies means young engineering teams.
Born in the cloud. Born in the cloud.
Exactly. Few old guys like myself. So these guys, your engineers push you to do stuff, and like I said, if I even say the word SVN, 90% of my team doesn't know what that means. So for the fintech guys, absolutely yes. But really, the question is that how does this adaptation look like in the financial services world?
Banking, traditional banking.
banking. And so in general, I mean, I come from that world, so I think it may take time, but I'm seeing a lot of at least big international banks building these incubators and backing small fintech startups. So they're kind of warm to the idea now. How long it takes for them to migrate some of this stuff, and some are already doing it. There are some banking workloads that I've seen that are running on at least fast, if not true serverless infrastructure of their own. So that's happening. And once that kind of starts to become mainstream, then because financial services is e-commerce and financial services is probably the largest applications out there any which way. So
That
e-commerce
is
is
correct.
fully there.
Yeah.
If banking there, then servers are dead, so to speak.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've seen this unfold in regulated industry like financial services, and it's really impressive how the cloud has been adopted and how function as a service is being used for things that matter to the consumer,
Yeah,
because that's where the biggest benefit is. It's instant gratification. You go to the website, you put in, and same thing is happening to
yeah,
insurance industry, which
yeah,
is, I mean, which is a very age old industry, and their insurtech has adopted it, and things are changing all
yeah.
over. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a blog post that the guys at State Farm, I think, put out on how they're using Lambda. So I said, does that make grammatical sense? Insurance, but
Yeah,
yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty encouraging
and
to look.
it is probably the biggest impact on the society, because these are the things that impact right away.
Absolutely, you're right.
So I have one last question. What I mean, again, as you mentioned, you have it's a fintech company
Mhm.
that you have, so you still have born in the cloud kind of engineering talent. But what kind of if you were advising somebody, what kind of skills and competencies are required in an organization to adopt such whether it's serverless methodology or cloud native methodology? Well, what do you think? What would you advise somebody?
I would say start at the very basics. The most basic problem that developers face is it runs on my local but doesn't run in dev. I don't know what's wrong. That's like 99% of the developers say that 99% of the time. So solve that by using just local containerization environments like a Docker, right? That's the first baby step in eventually the right direction. So move all of your guys to start using Docker so that at least their environment transportability problem kind of goes away. And then guess what? All you need is a DevOps guy to build a bit of a pipeline, and you're there. You can deploy a Kubernetes cluster on EKS or your own in a few clicks, and then your Docker registry will basically start writing, and all of a sudden the developer realizes that, hey, my stuff is now running on Kubernetes, and that kind of opens up their process. So what you want is you want your engineering team to start doing this discovery by themselves after the first push in that direction, because there's so much information available on YouTube and Stack Overflow and stuff like that they'll figure it out. You just have to kind of show them how it makes their life better, because people will always ask the question, what's in it for me? I mean, it's great for you, but what's in it for me? So if you answer that by saying, hey, this problem of every developer has this, that it works here but doesn't work there, this will go away just if you just use Docker. Uh, that's kind of what we did, and it worked out well.
And how about functions as a service? So Docker is containers, and then you're moving to a different runtime, which is functions. What would your advice would be? Should somebody start over there, or somebody start in container world?
So I would start engineering teams in the container world, and then I would basically pick something that gives you a lot of trouble in terms of scaling, and just spend the time. It doesn't take long. It's a few days worth of work. Deploy it on Lambda and have a API available. So do both. So that way, their life is easier. Plus, whatever was giving them a lot of maintenance trouble is kind of gone away. It's easy to figure out. I mean, the way we did it was we basically deployed an APM tool, and we saw the top 10, and we just kept going after the top 10. So initially the top 10 was like some ridiculous latencies, like 2000 milliseconds or something like that, and then over time, as you start taking those things out, it comes down to 40 milliseconds, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to spend more effort optimizing this than getting any benefits, and then you stop. So an APM tool will typically tell you what is it that's causing you the most trouble, and then just pick the top three. Start with the top three, and just move them out of your environment and onto a Lambda or something like that.
Okay, but why not move the whole application to something like FAS?
I mean, it's harder to do, right? I mean, not in terms of technically harder to do. It's just more work. You can score incremental wins by showing, because you also have to sell this to your internal team if they're not on it already, right? So you can
Okay.
score incremental wins by saying, hey, listen, our latency issues. 60% of the issues were these three applications, and us three guys did it over the weekend. So don't worry about it going forward.
Okay.
Let's worry about the rest. So once you kind of score these small wins for your team, it's just easy for them to kind of join the bandwagon.
Yes, absolutely. So lead by example. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Parikshit. It's been wonderful talking to you, and thank you for all the wonderful wisdom that you have provided our audience on just cloud native, building cloud native from day one.
Yeah.
Okay, and also transitioning. So you yourself mentioned that it was monolith, and you transitioned, and that has given a lot of benefits in terms of faster time to market and also customer satisfaction. So it's been great having you. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Anshu. This was a lot of fun, and hopefully, some listener somewhere will benefit. So,
They
thank you.
will, sure will. Thank you.